Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another Power Play Tuesday. Today's topic is self storage, and we're going to talk a little bit about why it thrives during a recession. So, we are very shortly going to bring up Mr. Scott Meyers to talk in depth about this, have all of your questions answered, and hopefully learn a lot along the way. Of course, first, before we dive into it, I do want to provide a brief disclaimer for all of the online courses that we have. This is for educational purposes only. So we do not provide any form of tax, legal, or investment structuring advice. We also do not endorse any specific products, services, or investments of any type. If that is the type of advice you are looking for, we highly encourage you to reach out to the proper attorney, accountant, or other financial advisor before you move forward into any specific investment. With that being said, if you are interested in investing into something like self-storage with the retirement funds that you have, or even potentially a health savings account or an education savings account, this is the way that you can get started today. If you scan this QR code, you'll be able to schedule a consultation with an IRA specialist to talk through what it is that you're looking to do, some of the many different opportunities that are out there for you, and some of the promotions that we have running this month as well. So I highly encourage you to take down this contact information. If you're not ready yet, hold on to it. Give us a call when you are. We'll be very happy to help you out. And at the end of the year, there's really no better time to get started planning your financial picture for the coming years. With going into 2024 and 2025, you want to make sure that you truly are set up to succeed in the future. With this Gold Family Plan that we host, this is going to allow you and your family to set up accounts. They'll all be tied under the same fee plan. It will allow you expedited service. You'll have private Gold Family events that we host. We also have a Gold Family team built out specifically to handle any correspondence, transactions, investments that you're looking to do. So whether you're a current Quest client or you are someone out there who's looking for the opportunities to grow wealth for you and your family in the long term, this may be a consideration to make. And again, we'll be happy to talk you through that in a consultation. Speaking of some of the promotions we are running, this one's actually ending this Friday. Now, this is for both our potential clients and our current clients. If you have a Quest account with us, or if you're planning on opening one, we are offering a reward credit for moving money into the account. You can see the tiers up here on the screen. Whichever one you may qualify for, if you initiate that transfer by December 15th, we'll be able to add this fee credit onto your account and potentially help you out towards your next investment. We can talk you through that through a consultation, or you can actually send an email to sales@questtrust.com, and we will have that discussion with you as far as what it's going to take to get the account open, the money moved in, and ultimately that very first investment made. So I highly encourage you to reach out to us on this. Last but certainly not least, we're going to keep it a little short here this morning. I want to mention our Quest Expo for those of you who may not be familiar. This is a large trade show style event focused on alternative investing. So self-storage is a large topic at this event. We also talk about real estate and private lending, cryptocurrency, really anything that's not stocks, bonds, and mutual funds will be discussed at this expo. We have a lot of amazing sponsors coming out and people from all over the country coming together to talk about this event or talk about some of the topics that we'll host at this event and network with each other to really get in on those deals that are upcoming in the new year. This is going to be June 27th through 29th of 2024. You can scan the QR code. It'll sign you up for our exclusive newsletter for the expo. And if you are going to already go and you want to buy that ticket, well, this is going to be early bird pricing until the end of the year. So we highly encourage you to take a look at that. Check out some of the speakers and the panels that we'll have for you and see if that event will be a good fit. We would love to have you out. This is actually going to be in Irving, Texas this year. So if you're not familiar, that's towards the Dallas area. And if you have any questions on that, you can let us know as well. One of our IRA specialists, very knowledgeable, she's going to be moderating today. Her name's Andrea. She's putting some links in the chat for you, so feel free to check us out. With that being said, we are going to move right along and add Mr. Scott Meyers to the chat. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Brianna. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I am actually going to step down myself, and I am going to let you take it away. Your slides are now added to the screen. And for everyone watching, any questions you have for Mr. Meyers, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will host a Q&A at the end. Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Brianna, and thanks to all of you. These are the types of calls. This is the type of a group, the room, the area that I want to be in, which is folks that are not sitting on the sidelines, that are looking at the different asset classes, alternative asset classes to invest in, and for those that are looking to learn. We are all about education. I have been in the real estate business and investing in real estate for over 30 years. And have been involved in self-storage for 18. And I'm speaking to you right now, not normally from my office or really our studio where I normally do these webinars from, but I'm actually down in Florida right now. And I am in a room with 250 of some of the top and brightest real estate investors in the country right now. And we have brought in actually six of the nation's top economists and those that focus on real estate. And so I've got some very good news to report, and I will share some of that now and more of it for those of you that will stick around until the end. But the overall consensus is really the mood, if you will. The mood-o-meter is a 9 on a 10 scale in terms of optimism for 2024. And so contrary to, I think what the news or maybe other media outlets would state with regards to the economy or real estate in general, everything is looking good for real estate heading into 2024 and beyond. So as Brianna mentioned, the information that I'm going to share is a little bit about the economy, a little bit about where we're at in terms of the state of real estate, but more focused on the nuts and bolts of self-storage and why it does so well during the economy that we're in right now, and the market that we find ourselves in. And that's not because I'm biased to self-storage, although that is all I invest in, but that is because I became biased and a real estate investor that specializes in nothing but self-storage after investing only in single-family homes and then multifamily, taking a hard look at mobile home parks and assisted living facilities, investing in warehouses, investing in office buildings, and investing in cold storage. So I've either looked at or invested in virtually all other real estate asset classes. And for all the reasons I'm going to mention right now, I landed in self-storage, and this is all that we invest in. And it's not that because everything, when you have a hammer and that's all you invest in, everything looks like a nail. It's because time and time again for the past 30 years that I've been investing in real estate, I've seen that self-storage, not only through the recession, but also through good times, beats all other asset classes in terms of returns. And so it certainly isn't because it's a sexy asset classes, because at the end of the day, self-storage, these are metal boxes on concrete slabs. But what is attractive and what attracted me to the business is, again, the performance. And through recession after recession, pandemics and other economic cycles, yes, this freight train that we call self-storage continues to roll on. And so I'm thankful to once again to be able to share my passion, the investment and asset class that I'm so that has meant so much for myself and my clients and our family personally with you, and maybe dispel some of the myths that are out there right now with regards to self-storage. And so what qualifies me to be able to speak on the asset class, and why did Quest ask me to come in? Well, I have been in the industry for a number of years now. I live in Indianapolis, by the way. I have an amazing wife, 3 amazing kiddos, and they have 1 average dog. And as I mentioned before, the experience that I have in real estate is through single-family homes. Had about 82 of those, 423 apartment units. But to date, I've bought, converted, and developed over 15,000 units and over 2.5 million square feet, and over $60,000 raised from our 400-plus private equity partners in self-storage. And that number is actually quite a bit higher than that as of this date. But I also speak on behalf of the industry for Inside Self-Storage at their trade shows, and I write for articles in their magazine, as well as the Self-Storage Association, and for Forbes magazine as well. And we founded the Self-Storage Podcast, the #1 podcast on, you guessed it, self-storage. In 2007, I also founded a national self-storage coaching business and a mentoring business. So we also teach people how to get into self-storage, how to go out and find, evaluate, purchase, and manage self-storage facilities, which was good timing in 2007, because that's when the economy began to look really good for self-storage, because it does actually better during a recession than it does during good times. At the end of the day, our business is our mission field, and we got into business so that it would support the lifestyle that my wife and I wanted, and for our family, but also to be able to give back. And that's what we do. We give back by building houses in Mexico and the Dominican Republic. We take our friends, family, coworkers, partners along with us on those trips, and we pay for them to go on an all-expense paid, short-term, family-friendly mission trip. And we build a house, and then we give them away. And people get to experience that through our organization. And now we are going on 2 trips per year, building 3 houses each time we go down to Mexico. And we just got back from a trip just prior to Thanksgiving, and getting ready to head back down in June as well. And so we've along the way we've learned from the recessions in '99 and 2008. I've been around again investing in real estate for over 30 years. I've been through two economic recessions, and if you include the pandemic, that is really number three. But then we really can't wait for number four. Whether you think that we're in a recession now or on our way out of it, or whether we're going to have a soft landing or a hard one, either way, we have been preparing because we've seen what happened in self-storage over the last two recessions and the pandemic. And we've seen the benefit of that and also the opportunities that exist in the marketplace for self-storage. And so, yes, we don't celebrate recessions. We don't celebrate pandemics. By any stretch, but we are excited about the next economic cycle that we're heading in because we know it creates opportunities for us. So, how and why? What does that look like? Why self-storage and why now? Well, we've seen that self-storage does extremely well during not only the recessions, but also during a pandemic. We saw it created a huge surge in demand because virtual work, which means working from home, which many companies have tried, but then were forced to do during the pandemic. Well, it allowed people not only the opportunity to move home to do work, but also the freedom to then move. When companies said, well, you don't have to come back to the office, then the people that maybe worked in a less desirable city or a location and they would rather be home or live somewhere else were allowed to do so if they're working from home, because then that meant that they could work from anywhere. 10,000 baby boomers are retiring daily, and that means that they are downsizing. They go to a smaller home, then they go to assisted living, and then when they ultimately pass on and go to their final resting place, those items go to back in storage because they go on to their kids, their heirs, and they don't always have a place to store those, but they can't throw them away or get rid of them because they're heirlooms, or mom or Aunt Edna will kill us when we get to heaven if we have thrown away that big green couch that everybody got their pictures on during all the holidays. And so where does it go? Well, it goes into storage. That's why. And so, yes, the baby boomers have created a huge demand for self-storage. Now, we got nervous, many people in the industry, thinking that, well, what happens when these other generations come along, specifically the millennials and then generations X, Y, and Z, because they don't care about stuff. They care about experiences more. Well, what we found is that the millennials and the other generations that have come behind the baby boomers actually have a 40% greater demand for self-storage because with those experiences means that they have smaller houses, transitional housing, because they are more transient in nature. But those experiences come in the way of kayaks and mountain bikes and camping gear and motorcycles and other things, stuff that won't fit in their tiny houses or their condos or apartments because the millennials and the generations that we are seeing come up behind us don't care as much about home ownership in a yard. They care more about flexibility, being able to move, have experiences, and that means different places and with different things. We saw during the pandemic, and also because of the generations that are coming up now, they want to be able to travel and they want to see not only our country, but they couldn't see other countries during the pandemic. So RVs were sold out, boats were sold out as well. And where did they go? Well, you can't park them in the yard. You can't park them in the street because the homeowners associations wouldn't allow it and there wasn't room. So they all went to our storage facilities. And yes, that created a huge surge in demand once again. And not only have we seen a huge surge in demand, but also a nationwide wait list for self-storage. And when you begin to look around at the ads, like many that, like the example that I've shown on the screen right now, we're in the business of renting units. We never want to turn anybody away. And so when you go online and they say that we're sold out right now, you can't even reserve a unit. Well, they're not lying. You're sold out, you're sold out. You just have nothing else left to rent, if you will. So that has created the perfect storm for us in self-storage. And so even the folks in multi-housing news, those folks that cover the multifamily or apartment community and the investment community, stating that the status that we find ourselves in right now, self-storage has moved from an asset class of interest to now the preferred asset class for many traditional lenders and private equity partners as well. So yes, I have been around for a little while. And why am I showing this old ad? Well, it is from Thursday, July the 19th from 2012. It's not an ad. It is basically a news piece on self-storage coming through the end of the recession. Why self-storage, once again, outlasted the recession and it outpaced all the REIT sector growth in terms of growth. All the other REITs, meaning in apartments, in assisted living, in hospitality, meaning a hotel, motel, mobile home parks, you name it. Self-storage, once again, came out on top. So it does extremely well during a recession. It outpaces everything else, but also during good times, self-storage does well because, well, you guessed it. What do we do in this country when things are good or times are good? We buy more stuff and we run out of stuff. We run out of room to store our stuff. And so where does it go? It goes into self-storage. And so that's why you'll constantly see self-storage referred to as the inflation-resistant and recession-resistant asset class. And there are many articles or many stats that you can look at that corroborate not just what I'm saying, but much of that proof is also in an article that I wrote for Forbes magazine about the 4 reasons investors are looking at the self-storage industry right now, which we're going to break down here as well. So one of the reasons why I love self-storage so much, and why I got into it as an active investor, is because we have the protection of lien laws in our industry, not eviction laws, because eviction laws in habitational real estate, they really protect the tenant, whereas the lien laws in real estate, they protect the investor, which means that if somebody doesn't pay us in the self-storage sector, well, we have the right by law under the lien laws to, first remove their gate code so they can't get into the facility if they haven't paid. Number 2, we lock them out. So if we have the electronic locks on our units, the code doesn't work any longer. If it's a key fob, that doesn't work any longer. Or if it's just an old-fashioned place for 2 locks, one for theirs, well, there's one for ours as well. And we will put another lock on their unit so that they cannot get into the facility. And then if they don't pay after, depending upon the state's lien laws, 60 or 90 days, we have the right as the owner to be able to auction their stuff off. So we don't have, as an investor on the active side and our passive investors, we don't have huge issues with accounts receivable. It's more predictable business model in terms of cash flow, because if somebody doesn't pay, well, we have the ability to remove them and we have the ability to sell their stuff off. So we do get paid. We get paid 100% of the time. We don't get paid 100% of our back rent and late fees, but we get paid 100% of the time. Unlike the days when I was in office and single family and multifamily, where if somebody didn't pay, they just called it non-payment of rent. And if they destroyed the property because they were mad that you evicted them, the courts didn't just call it excessive wear and tear, for what it was. We were stuck with those bills. Whereas in self-storage, it is what it is. If somebody doesn't pay, that's taking money from the business, and they no longer get the use of that, and they have to go, and then we sell their stuff to make up for what they owe us for the lack of payment or basically theft in the business. So I know nobody calls it theft. But the way I grew up, if you don't pay somebody, that's stealing from them. And it's unfortunate that courts look at it differently in habitational real estate, but the good guys are on our side in self-storage, because the lien laws are meant to enforce the laws that are in place. If you don't pay somebody, you have to pay them in order to use the service. So the good news is, in self-storage, no courts, attorneys, or collection services. We are the judge and jury, and we have the right to be able to enforce them, which is really the way it should be. So it's real simple. We hold an auction on site. Our managers do, or a company will hold it, third party, like you see on TV and the shows. Or we can have an online auction where we get even more bidders that once we open up the unit, cut the lock off, take a look at what's inside, take pictures and put it online. We let the feeding frenzy begin, and we get up to and including the amount that is owed on our back rent and late fees on those units. And sometimes it's even more. Now, we don't get to keep that money. We have to send that back to the last known name and address of the client that was in that unit. But that is far greater and better than the days when we were in single family and apartments, where we very rarely received any of that money back. So it is also one of the easier asset classes from an active investor standpoint to be able to fund, because of what we just mentioned, the accounts receivable and the loan loss. It is or rent loss. Our loan loss is also very low in the industry. As a matter of fact, it's the lowest. So the cumulative default rate and the cumulative loan loss rate is the lowest of all commercial real estate asset classes. So for us, from an active investor standpoint, this is the easiest asset class for be able to get a loan, because lenders love self-storage, because they love to have it on their balance sheet because it does so well. And if they have a strong balance sheet, it means that they get more money from the feds to be able to make more loans and to become a stronger bank. So for us on the active side, it is very easy to get these deals across the finish line, because lenders are clamoring to get loans in self-storage. And so they want to do business with us. And then once we own these facilities, we have the ability to, one of the beauties is that we have the ability to then increase the cash flow and the income streams on self-storage by way of adding retail sales of locks and boxes and moving supplies, record storage and shredding services at the end of the 7-year HIPAA regulations. We can add billboards and cell phone towers to our sites to, once again, force the appreciation and the value of our facilities. We can offer temperature control and wine storage. We offer renter's insurance, vending machines, eBay services, also pack and ship services. And then what is most common is truck rental that you see that has been around for years since self-storage really began back in the 60s, and then became a thing and very popular back in the 1970s. So we've identified over 40 different profit centers that you can add to a self-storage facility to increase the cash flow and the value and force the appreciation and the value in our industry. And now we have seen that in no other asset class that we've been investing in, and we've invested in all of them. So not only on the income side do we have the ability to ratchet up the income, not just through rent increases, but the other ancillary income streams. But when we purchase a facility and or when we develop or build one from the ground up, one of the highest line item expenses next to property taxes is payroll. Even though it doesn't take much, there's not a lot of customer interaction with self-storage, so much so that the actual interaction of leasing a unit, it's very simple and it's a very low labor intensive type of transaction. So if we have an office at our facilities, and many of ours are running unmanned, it is a very small office like the one you see on the left here. And it will have the sizes of the units, a 5 by 10, a 10 by 10, a 10 by 15, 10 by 20. So the client can see just exactly the size and what it'll look like for them to be able to put their stuff in. We don't have to have a manager sitting them down on a golf cart, especially when on a hot day in Texas or Florida or California, and drive them around to find an empty 5 by 10 or a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 15. They can see it right there. They can choose which one they want utilizing the kiosk, and they can complete the entire transaction by way of the touch screen. And even now, we are replacing those touch screens at our facilities by way of this. We call it a cell phone. And it performs this transaction just the same because it is utilizing the same software. It is coming into the back end of our portal that we can access online and that our clients can access online for not only renting a unit, but then also for paying for their unit on a monthly basis as well, eliminating the need to have somebody sitting there 30, 40 hours a week, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for somebody to walk through the door to handle a very low labor intensive transaction. And if you see on the right, that photo there, if they do have a question along the way, they can also click on a button. It accesses the camera and the screen that is located on the wall to the right, and they are immediately connected to a call center where somebody can then answer their questions or walk them through the transaction. And so, just like we've had ATM machines and kiosks in place, and even ordering coffee through the Starbucks app and then picking it up on your way through, well, that same technology has made its way into self-storage and has made it very easy for us to be able to remotely and virtually manage our self-storage facilities, and reducing our payroll and thus our highest line item expense. So even if somebody doesn't pay, instead of having to go out and put a lock on those units like we used to do in the old days or in the beginning days of self-storage, now we have locks on the inside of the units. And so when somebody doesn't pay, the property management software automatically locks the unit so that they cannot get in. And if somebody should then make a payment, let's say they do it online, they actually do it at site, and they forgot. If they make that payment, then instead of having to call a manager to come unlock the unit, if it's later at night or after hours, well, they can make that payment by their phone and it automatically unlocks out their unit. So it is very, very seamless and integrated management by way of handling this virtually. And so for all the concerns that many of our clients had in the beginning, or even our industry, we now have added and we've upgraded our security features, having both the thermal and the motion security for anybody coming in and out of our facilities. We do have a time limit, a time frame and set hours. We don't want people in our facilities all hours of the day. They don't need to get into their storage unit all hours of the day. But we also mandate renter's insurance, so that there is no question if there's an issue or a challenge with any of their items being damaged, or heaven forbid somebody actually does do something stupid like try to break into a unit with all of our cameras and security around, which they will get caught, as they always have and always would. It just eliminates the concern for anybody to not have somebody sitting there babysitting or guarding their stuff at all hours of the day. So overall, it reduces our HR issues, overall cost, and we do this by way of fence, electronic gates, motion sensors, security all the way around. And it really is just a seamless way of being able to manage this asset class in real estate completely unmanned if we want to. This happens and it starts on the front end with a responsive website. So it responds to, first of all, whatever type and size of screen or device somebody is using, whether it's their laptop, desktop, an iPad, their iPhone. Either way, that software, it responds to the screen they're using, has full functionality, and allows them to do just that. They can rent a unit, they can reserve a unit, finish the rental when they come down to the facility, and then pay rent and even move out along the way as well. So that is the asset class and why we love that. And I'll get back to some of the stats in a minute. But what I also wanted to take some time right now is to talk about is that we spend an awful lot of time as syndicators ourselves. We have multiple funds, we have individual syndications, and it's real easy to get excited about an asset class and about somebody like myself who's passionate about a certain asset class that they're investing in. But I want to take some time to, if you haven't already taken the time to really, do your homework and your due diligence and understand truly what that is and what that means to evaluate sponsors or syndicators like myself that you want to invest in and invest with, especially now. There's a lot of fear in the marketplace, and we have the media that is nothing but doom and gloom and talking about how bad things are. And so, who do you trust? How do you know that this this company has integrity and that they're going to be good stewards of your money? Well, it all starts, first of all, with the company structure. What does that look like? First of all, is there a structure? Do they have the four major food groups covered? Is there a CEO who is running the ship? Is there a COO who's in charge of overall operations? Is there a CFO who's in charge of financials? And then, in any other, most other companies like ours, they have a chief information officer or investment officer who is in charge of finding those investments as well. But if it's just a one-man, two-man show or a couple of partners, and there is no formal structure to it, there's no C-suite. Well, that may be a company you want to look into a little bit further. Also, property management. You want to understand for sponsors like ourselves, how are they managing their facilities? Are they doing it in-house? And who is handling that? Is it the person that is also in charge of everything else that is also in charge of property management? Well, for us, we found that you do that in the beginning and you hire people to do it. And then when you begin to grow, you change over to third-party property management because typically geographically and from an HR standpoint and hiring standpoint, you really can't. If you're growing at scale, it's tough to do and to build that in-house. And then eventually, most folks come back to the place where they recognize that nobody cares 1% as much about your investment as you do. And so for us and our investors, a property management company, their goal is fees, right? And ours is the opposite of that, is reducing fees, passing those returns, the income and the net operating income through to us and our investors. And so we are a fully vertically integrated company, meaning that all of our property management is in-house because we can control those expenses, and it's a pass-through for us so that the profits end up greater for us and our investors. You need to do your due diligence and make sure that the company that you're investing with also makes that available to you. Are they using third-party specialists to determine the value in terms of performing feasibility studies for a development project, and also from a evaluation standpoint, not just from an appraisal, but a true evaluation of the business? Who are they utilizing for all of their other third-party aspects if they are handling security outside, property management outside, and just making sure that you have access to that by way of a portal to be able to, as a limited partner or an investor that is coming in on an inactive side, that you have access to all the due diligence that an active investor would have as well. Who is part of their legal team? Do they have a real estate legal team that includes folks both on the SEC side for the private equity piece of this investment, as well as the actual real estate side that understands the contracts that they're entering into and the day-to-day operations? We have really three types of attorneys, and we have 2 to 3 on each, meaning the SEC, from a practical standpoint, just running our contracts through purchase and sale agreements, and then also on the operation side, handling any issues that may come up in terms of liability or HR. Are they properly insured? And that only includes the property level, but also at the company level. Do they have errors and omissions, and do they have key man life insurance? Also, another question that you should ask of your syndicator or your sponsor. Who's handling their accounting? Is it in-house? Is it handled by a third party? And is it regularly audited so that you can see the financials on a regular basis? There's a difference between property management and asset management, and the difference is this. Property management is just that. Who is managing the property itself, the facility, and do they understand what it takes to be able to manage that facility the most effectively? But then asset management is another level, meaning that they are maximizing the NOI at this facility and then in the overall portfolio that you may be investing in, and that somebody is managing the property managers or the property management company that has key performance indicators in place and that they are driving those. We have 3 asset managers that are doing just that. They keep an eye on our property managers within our own company to make sure that they are hitting their marks and hitting their milestones for our investors. Guarantors, who's guaranteeing the loans. If there's literally no skin in the game by the syndicators or the folks that are investing in the projects alongside of you as the general partners, if there isn't any, then first of all, what happens if things go to heck in a handbasket? Are they willing to stay in or stick around because their credit may be ruined or dinged as a result of their poor performance, or is it guaranteed by somebody else? It's also important to look at the equity and debt structure to make sure that they are not getting over leveraged. We sit at within our portfolios anywhere from 60 to 65% LTV. We never want to get ourselves our head over our skis, if you will, and become over leveraged. We've been at this a while. We've been through 2 recessions, and we understand what it looks like to become over leveraged and be in trouble because we've seen it happen. And the landscape is littered with folks that have made that mistake. So it's also important to look at the capital stack and the investors that you're investing with and how they have structured their deals and their company, and how long have they been at this. We feel that we are in a position that, because we've been at this for 30 years, my partners and I have all, literally hundreds of years experience amongst all of us, but, that the heads of the game here have been at the business for 30 years plus. And, that allows you to see a little bit further when you've been through a couple of recessions and you understand, when trouble is coming and what it looks like, and you see it maybe before somebody else does. It hasn't been around as long. And as I heard many years ago from a gray-haired gentleman who used to run a very large real estate hedge fund, he said, I would never invest with a syndicator, meaning somebody like myself, unless they walk with a limp. You would never follow a general into battle unless they walk with a limp, meaning somebody who's been through something and maybe has some scars to prove it. And I think that's true. We see many people making mistakes with this unbridled optimism because they've operated from a place of being in real estate and having success since 2010 or greater. And, we recognize that, the industry, real estate, and the economy has been very good since 2010 and beyond. And the success of many folks out there was, 50% of that success was as a result of a huge wind in their back and in their sail from a booming economy in real estate, not necessarily because they were all that great, no matter what their mother says. And consultants, we rely on a number of consultants outside. We don't present everything as if, hey, we're the best. We've been doing this the longest, and we know better. We know better than everybody else, and here's why. All of our underwriting, all of our projections, and everything that we present to our lenders and to our private equity partners to come alongside of us are blessed by consultants, and they are their underwriting, and it is their appraisals. It is all third party that we come from a place of raising capital from and putting loans on and presenting to our lenders. It is not just all of us standing in front of these folks to give us money because we're very convincing. It is only backed by the stats and the data from our consultants. We also have a very solid investor relations department and folks that don't handle their folks well, and meaning our limited partners and communicating with them well, sending them information, getting K1s out on a timely basis aren't going to be around as well. So that kind of goes back to tenure as well. The folks that you're looking to invest with, they need to have a solid, first of all, they need to have an investor relations department or folks that are going to be handling your relationship, and understanding just exactly what that looks like and what those expectations are will go a long ways. And then, of course, track record. Again, we like to point back to folks that have gone full cycle. They've raised capital, they've built value in real estate, and then they've exited, and they actually hit their marks. They hit the projections that they had presented to their limited partners and the folks that came along with them, as well as their lenders. And they've done this solidly for year after year after year after year. And so, for us, that puts us in a little better position against our competition. And we've got over 450 investment partners. We've raised over 45 million to this point. We have 160 million in assets under management, and we've got over 14,000 units and counting across the country, across 41 projects. And excuse me, I don't say that from a standpoint of pride or ego or anything else, other than the fact that we've been around for a little while, and our folks that continue to invest with us, they do so for a reason. It's because we've done all those things that we just said, and they have done their due diligence. And so whether you invest with our company or not, my goal in going through this is for you to once again weather the storm that we are in some cases, but live to fight another day by winning not only the battle but the war, and that comes from going into battle with folks that have been at this for a number of years. So as we look at the criteria that we invest in and what we're focusing on, again, nothing but self-storage, B and C class properties, with high traffic counts in front of them in underserved markets that are underserved in terms of square footage of self-storage per the actual per capita. In emerging markets that are in the path of progress and growth, and so we call them the sunshine states or the smile states, if you will, and nothing but value-add opportunities, which means a distressed seller, distressed markets per se, in terms of where this facility may be located and the timing of it. And then also land for expansion and conversion. So we're big on conversions right now. We have two funds to invest in for our investors. One is focused on acquisitions of value-add facilities, and the other one is on conversions, which are taking vacant, dark, big boxes, former retail businesses, former manufacturing facilities that have gone out of business. And then we repurpose them and put in walls and doors and mezzanines and create 2 stories or 3 stories out of what was a single story large warehouse, and turn it all into self-storage. And then, well, we deploy our management efficiencies and the reduction of expenses that we see in almost every facility that we go into, and then deploy our unmanned and low manned management expertise and technology to run these better than what the previous owners were, or what was not in place to begin with at this facility. So our target markets are Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, and Georgia. Again, the smile states, and where population is growing at the fastest rate. And then the secondary markets that we focus on are, we do have some one-off markets where we found some incredible opportunities and markets where employment and growth rates and a low tax environment make it a very good environment for us to be able to develop or purchase facilities. So our criteria in terms of characteristics are a population count of 25,000 plus in our trade area, meaning in a 3-mile radius. We like to see 25,000 or more people within that. We're not looking into the rural or tertiary markets per se. We want to see positive population growth, undersupplied markets, low crime, and high traffic counts immediately in front of or near the facility, with good ingress and egress to get in and out of those, which means that we kiss a lot of frogs. We look at a lot of deals, if you will, that our brokers and our wholesalers and our own internal staff find and look at, but it is only those that make it into our funds and is a part of our portfolio. Then we create the value once we've purchased those by not only increasing the income and reducing the expenses through our formulas, but then adding U-Haul dealerships and increasing the income that way by aggressively managing the revenue against the market and raising rates very aggressively in comparison to our competition. And that's because we put out a very good product and we have the ability to do so. We no longer tolerate the friends and family discounts that a previous owner had or never begin to offer them, if you will. And then we do maximize sales of locks, boxes, moving supplies, bubble wrap, anything else that we can generate revenue at the site. We will add it if it makes sense to do so. And then additional revenue streams by adding outdoor and vehicle storage, boat and RV as well. And then a reduction in fixed and variable expenses across our portfolio, which by economies of scale also allows us, by way of, for instance, one website to be able to market for all of our facilities nationwide and not have to pay ad spend and Google ad spend and YouTube and Facebook ads for multiple facilities, but for one that rolls up into one. Regional managers and district managers that oversee multiple properties instead of flying individuals out to these facilities and 1 or 2 facilities within a market. It just, as you continue to grow and scale, that allows us to be able to exercise those management efficiencies, and always keeping an eye out for ways to do so for ourselves and for our investors. And that's what allows us to be able to offer what we feel are fairly aggressive also returns that we've gone full cycle on time and time again for the past 18 years that we've been investing in self-storage. So we have 2 offerings right now that are open and available to investors. One of them is our conversion fund, which focuses on, again, as I mentioned, big box, dark, vacant warehouses, industrial buildings that we are then repurposing and repositioning in the market to self-storage by adding mezzanines, additional floors, and then adding the walls and doors with the zoning already in place, the demand already there, and an infill location. This is our preferred model and our preferred strategy going forward into 2024. And for that, we are very good at this strategy. We've been doing this for a number of years, and that's what allows us to offer a 22 to 24% IRR, targeted projection for our investors. And why the range? Well, we have different classes of shareholders. For those that want to come in at $1 million, there is a bump in the percentage of equity, and therefore the returns over the folks that are coming in at below $1 million. So a $50,000 minimum to come into our conversion fund. Average cash on cash return of about 6 to 8%, which is projected, and an annualized return range of 21 to 25%. And we already have assets that are being brought into the conversion fund, and we're getting ready to close on another one by the end of this year. So the highlights is a preferred return of 8%. Once again, the preferred Class A1 shares are offered given an 80% share of equity to our equity partners that are coming in. And coming in below $1 million is a 70-30 split, 70% to our folks that are coming in and 30% back to us. This is a growth fund. It's focused on a growth for these conversions. They're not a distressed asset in terms of a facility that's turning around right away, but is growth focused because there's no cash flow in the immediate future until they are converted and then begin to cash flow. We are very IRA friendly and work with folks obviously like Quest Trust, and which if I could put a plug in for without, and not just because I'm here, but not all self-directed companies are created equal. I can tell you this from experience, and I get asked to speak for other self-directed IRA companies, and we won't speak for them because we've had challenges with them and the way they've treated their customers, quite honestly, and then therefore us. And for those of you that are investing with Quest, you've hitched your wagon to the right folks. They are quick, they're efficient, they don't make up excuses to hold your funds for investing in projects like ours. And we work with a number of Quest folks and had nothing but a great experience on folks. And we refer a number of folks to them as well. Targeted life of this fund is 5 years, which we found is typically our sweet spot for our investors, but we're usually exiting prior to that on our projects. And the number of assets that we look to put into this fund is about 13 to 18 buildings that we will convert into self-storage. And one of the beauties right now for those of you that are looking for depreciation, well, you've waited 41 minutes to hear whether we offer that or not. And indeed, the beauty of self-storage and the beauty of our buildings and the way, especially in the conversion fund that we do this, is that we are able to depreciate a large percentage of not only the building when we acquire it, but also the walls and doors afterwards because they are not all fixtures, because they are movable. Even our walls are movable by design so that we can take a 40-foot wide building and we can make a 10 by 20 or a 10 by 30, and we can move those walls, everything from our roll-up doors to most of the facility we can depreciate, and we pass that through to our investors as well. So if you are looking for depreciation in the upcoming year, you may want to have a strong look at both our conversion fund as well as our acquisition fund as well. So why do we do what we do? We don't have to do this. We get to do this. And that means that we get to give back. And from the beginning, when my wife and I began investing, before we began bringing other folks on, it was so that we could have a life for our kids that didn't involve handling a lot of tenants and toilets. And we love real estate for all the reasons that you do as well. Appreciation, depreciation, tax purposes, it is fantastic, and we can also borrow money and leverage it and other people's expertise to grow exponentially. It ticked all the boxes. And then to get into self-storage, once we eliminate the tenants, the toilets, and the trash, well, that gave us time to do what was second on our list of goals that we had for our family, and that is to give back and to be go-givers. And that is to go out into the mission field. And we go down to Ensenada, Mexico. And yes, we, as I mentioned, we now build 3 houses, 2 trips twice a year, build 3 houses each, and we bring along our investors along with us, our investment partners, anybody and everybody, our neighbors, friends, family, coworkers, whoever wants to go on a short-term family-friendly mission trip. We pay for you to go on that trip. All you do is get yourself to San Diego, and we take care of the rest. And the ripple effect that we've seen as a result of that, now the folks that we've taken on those trips, me and my family, we were taking on one of those trips in the beginning, and I felt the calling to go out and do likewise, and there are many other folks that feel the same way, as we paid it forward for them to do the same, and they're going out and holding these trips and inviting their friends, family, coworkers to go along with it, and ending generational poverty one family at a time, one house at a time, and making a dent in the world by way of our business and self-storage, and never would have happened if we would have stayed, and I literally mean never, in single family and apartments in our office buildings and our other larger warehouses, because they're management intensive and they didn't produce the cash flow, like self-storage does through all economic cycles and with unmanned facilities. And again, that's not just me saying that. Self-storage literally has outperformed all other asset classes, bar none, for the past 25 years, which again is the reason why I get in self-storage. If you know of another asset class, another business out there that does better than self-storage, I'd be put it in the chat. I'd be happy to see what it looks like. Something that has stood the test of time and is recession and inflation resistant. That has been as long as self-storage. I'll be first in line because we haven't seen anything else that does any better than this. So we love the asset class, but don't take our word for it. The National REIT, NAREIT, which I'm sure many of you use. If you look at the way that they track the investments across the asset classes, if you look at the 25-year average annual returns, well, self-storage comes up on top, 16.85%. And these are the REITs. These are the big guys. The industrial sector, if you invested in the REITs that specialize only in warehouses, returned 13.4% over the past 25 years. Healthcare facilities also right at 13.4, the same. Multifamily at 12.93. Retail at 12.04. Office at 12.15, and the S&P 500 averaging 7%. Downside protection, you can also see that self-storage comes out ahead in terms of the REITs and how they fared from 2007 and 2009 in the last recession. They were down by only 3.86%, whereas multifamily really took it in the shins at negative 6.72. Retail got hammered, negative 12.32, and we're seeing that again. Office at negative 8.16%, and of course the S&P 500 through 2007 to 2009 lost 21%. By way of comparison, if you had invested $100,000 in self-storage in 1994, it outperformed multifamily by 2,215,650. It didn't just return 2 million; it outperformed multifamily by 2,215,650, and the S&P 500 by 3,494,170. And again, that source is NAREIT, or NAREIT, if you will. So this is why we do what we do, and that is because we decided to join an asset class that already has a leg up on all the others, and then we decided to get to just as good as we possibly can at it, and perfect our systems, perfect our management, become vertically integrated, and that is what allows us over the past 18 years, through 2 recessions and through the pandemic, to return 36.74% average IRR to our investors. We have successfully bought, created value, and exited on multiple projects through that time period, including the pandemic. And we have doubled the returns of the REITs during that time period at, as I mentioned, 16.84%. 16.85%. We have doubled that and allowed our investors to come alongside of us, and they've received returns of 36.74%. And so and this is not a plug for us, only to state that it is important for you, no matter who you invest with out there, to look at where they've been, how long they've been doing this, and have they done this consistently? Have they actually created value and exited for their investors through a couple of recessions and through the pandemic? And so I'd like to open up to questions right now. And of course, if you do, we have 2 funds that just opened up, a $25 million acquisition fund, where we are focusing on what we have been for the past 30 years, which is value add existing self-storage facilities. We closed out one $25 million fund. We're opening another one that focuses on these mom and pop value add facilities. And then also the $15 million conversion fund, which I just mentioned, that focuses on nothing but vacant big box warehouses that we are going to convert over to self-storage. So with that, we do have time. We got about 12 minutes or so to answer questions that weren't already answered in the chat. So Brianna, I guess I'll turn it back over to you to either feed those or show them to me on the screen, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to leave your contact information up there while we go through this. But I'm going to put a couple of questions up there that we can answer here within the next 12 minutes. So here is your first one from Stephen Lewis.
Mm-hmm. What would you suggest an individual storage investor do to compete with the bigger storage franchises such as CubeSmart? Well, that's interesting, Stephen, because we compete with them, and they're our customers. They're our friendly competitors. So many times they will come into a market, and sometimes they'll develop a facility and they'll cut rates. And I'm not saying this is a CubeSmart. Let's just say any of the REITs, the bigger players. And they may cut rates for a little while, but eventually what they do, then they are the market leader in terms of rates, and they're pushing rates. And so, we may be cursing them when they first come into a market, but we are applauding them and just, cheering them on later on, because they are going to be the market drivers of rent, especially if they're not. If there isn't a REIT in the market to begin with. We also sell. Our goal is to create a portfolio or to develop facilities that are attractive to the REITs. As a matter of fact, that is our model. That is, I don't want to say that that may be attractive. That is the goal. We put together groups of facilities, and then we sell them off as a package to the national players, to the regional players, and to the REITs. When we develop a facility, we develop it to the specs and the standards of the REITs and what they want to buy in the markets that they want to buy in. Now, specifically, if you're looking at buying a facility that they may be in the market for as well, you got to be more nimble, and that's it. Speed wins. Speed is the name of the game. We have the ability to create relationships with sellers that maybe sometimes don't want to sell to or talk to the REITs for various reasons, and you may already know why and what that looks like, Stephen. But that is really that's kind of our superpower, is creating a relationship with these sellers, knowing the market ahead of time. So when the big guys come in and they're swinging big checks around and their egos around as well, and how they're going to do this and that. Well, if you've already got a relationship with the seller, and it's just they're waiting for the time is right to sell, and you've already applauded them for their business and how well they've done, and that you're a willing and able buyer to take their facility to the next level and to complete their legacy if they can't or didn't have the means to be able to do so. They care more about what you're going to do with their facility afterwards than just selling it, sometimes even for a higher price to the big guys. That may sound like I'm crazy, but Stephen, if you've been around this for a little while and you talk to many self-storage investors, you recognize you build a relationship with these folks, and they will do business and transact with you.
Here is another one from Stephen. What would be the financial advantages or disadvantages between constructing a storage facility and rehabbing an existing facility?
Yeah. Well, quickest way to get into the self-storage business is buy an existing one. So there you go. There's one. When you build a facility, well, let me back up. They're kind of the same point. So if you buy an existing facility, many times, depending upon when it was built, it may have been built many, many years ago, and it's a concrete block construction, and maybe it's got a lot of 5-foot doors, small 5x5s, 5x10s, and those, the demand now in the market is, as we've gone through generation after generation, is for bigger units. The most built and desired unit back in the 70s was a 5x5. Then when it went to a 5x10, and now the place we're at right now, it's a 10x15. And so there may be some facilities out there that are functionally obsolete, and so you just may not want them. You're going to have to heavily discount those units, and it just may not be attractive. So conversely, with a development project, you can build what you want, and you can build what the market wants, and you can construct your unit mix based upon a feasibility study to give the market exactly what it wants. Build it to spec, be first to market, be in the path of progress, desirable location, and then build it to spec as to what again, a REIT or somebody may want to buy down the road. So outside of that, those are two of the major. I would say you also, even though there's really, we're rarely surprised by an individual or a facility that is already built, and by the time we buy it, what you see is what you get. We can't go into all the units, but we go into a number of ones that are vacant. We open up the doors, we look around, we look at the roof, and it's rarely ever that we're surprised. But there may be something down the road that would be a surprise that you didn't know or didn't find in your due diligence from an existing facility versus a new construction. Funding for new construction right now is a little bit difficult, whereas acquisitions with a historical track record of performance and an income stream already in place is going to be favorable to get financing right now for an existing. So if you're looking to just get into the business, by all means, an existing facility is going to be an easier path to get in versus construction.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that. I have a question from Bob Sand of the top 50 self-storage companies in the U.S. about where does Kingdom Storage fit?
Yeah, depending on where you look at it, in terms of 50 or others, with the assets under management right now, we're about in the mid 30s. And in terms of all the projects and properties we've done and had assets under management, we've flirted around in the top 20 range or so. However, you're never going to see Kingdom Storage. It's just our holding company up there. And so what you'll see is our brand, our management company, which is People's Choice Storage. You're going to see Punta Gorda Boat and RV Storage Facility, because we brand our facilities many times with the name of the city for obvious reasons. If somebody's looking for boat and RV storage in Punta Gorda, Florida, Punta Gorda self-storage and Punta Gorda RV and boat storage is going to come up first. And so we keep our name up there, but our holding company, which you won't see out there, is Kingdom Storage. So, depending upon the day, the month, the year, somewhere hovering around the 30 to 20. We're actually, the slide that was in the front here is off by quite a bit. We're approaching 5 million square feet right now and 28,000 units. And so we've been on a pretty hefty growth spurt since the last time that slide was updated. So that's where we land right now.
All right, and we have a few more here. We'll try to get through them in the next 6 minutes. This
Mhm.
next question is coming from Stephen Haber. Do you partner with experienced self-storage facility owners looking to expand their portfolio via new builds or acquiring existing facilities?
We do because Steve and our I think what we've gotten really good at is doing joint ventures, and we've gotten really good at raising private equity. We have a number of folks that invest along with us because of our track record and our integrity and a history of our returns. And so a lot of our growth is by way of that. Is that we'll come alongside a very strong, established, and also again like-minded company or individual that is looking to grow and scale. And what we bring to them is some operational efficiencies, our private equity, some of our lending relationships as well, and our Rolodex and our vast experience. As long as it's a fit, and we are. It is like a marriage. A partnership is like a marriage. We have to make sure that we have clear operating agreement that has clear roles and responsibilities, but also that is somebody that really matches us in terms of being equally yoked in all aspects. Then yes, we will come alongside of those folks and either bring private equity and sometimes our balance sheet, and sometimes our whatever is necessary to move a portfolio of acquisitions forward, or a development as well. We work with a lot of Stephen. We've worked with a lot of developers over the years that made millions for other folks, owners, and they decided, hey, all we need to do is figure out this private equity piece and some management, and we can be keeping the money for ourselves instead of having to kill what we eat and drag it back to the cave over and over again. And so we've invested and partnered with a number of those folks as well.
Wonderful. And I have actually another one here from Stephen Lewis. It's talking about square footage of self-storage per capita. What should the square footage of self-storage be per capita in an assessment of where a self-storage should be?
Yeah. So the number, Stephen, for years has always been hovering around 6.5 to 7.5 square foot per person in a 3-mile trade area. Now, if it's a rural market, it's we like that number to be in a 5-mile radius, and if it's a downtown metro MSA, it would be in a 1-mile radius. But for the most part, we're looking at a 3-mile trade area radius of a site or a facility that we're looking at, and if there's 10 square feet of self-storage per person, well, it doesn't mean that it's saturated or that it's overbuilt. And the same as if it has a 4.5 or 4 square foot per capita, doesn't mean that it's undersupplied or underserved, because there's also a demand factor built into that as well. There are areas here in Florida where I am where there is 10 square foot per capita. And because there's no basements and there's 0 lot lines, all the facilities are full with a waiting list. And so you get into the 12, 13, 14 square foot per capita before you reach equilibrium, if you will. And there's other areas where there's, 4 and 5 is enough because, it's a rural area, and they all got barns and they got a lot of land, and they just don't have a need for self-storage. So not trying to confuse you, but it depends. The answer to almost all my the questions that you're going to present to me is going to be it depends. But really, somewhere in that 6 to 7.5, 6.5 to 7.5 gets our attention until we dig in a little bit further into the market, and then take a look to understand what the competition is doing. Are they raising rates? Are they full? That's when we begin to do the ground assault and look at the other facilities and how they're performing.
Great. We do have several more, but we're cutting close to the time here. So I want to ask this last one from Bob Sand. What was your worst performing storage investment and why, and how did you exit?
Ugh. Thanks, Bob. We were having a good day until that. It was an apartment complex that I bought many years ago, and we did a seller carryback. Yes, it was papered, but it was more on trust. And the seller defaulted, left us holding the bag, and left us with an asset. We did our due diligence on it, but there was lots of phantom leases, phantom information in it, and some of the stuff that maybe somebody would have found. It was early on again in our career. I mean, I'm going back 28 years now, and yeah, we just learned a lesson about you can't have enough attorneys, you can't do enough due diligence. And I think a little bit also, Bob, probably some over exuberance that we could regentrify not only this property, but maybe the block and raise rates. And it was pretty by the time we got done with it. But at the end of the day, we certainly couldn't change the demographic of the folks. They were just destroying our nicer apartments than the crummy apartments that were there before. And that just cost more money to be able to rehab that. So we exited. And we exited at a loss, close to a break even, but pretty much a loss. And learned a lot from that. And that was also, we only had a handful of apartment units in multifamily before I recognized, the deck is stacked against us in multifamily, and we're seeing it again. Now that sector is hurting right now, and so never say never, but I will never get into multifamily again.
Well, thank you so much for going through that question and answer with us. There are several
Mhm.
questions that are unanswered, but I do highly encourage you all to reach out to Passive Storage Investing at the email that they've listed here with
Mhm.
those questions, inquiries, and let them know what it is that you're looking to do. But Scott, we want to thank you so much for being here with us for the hour and teaching us along the way. For those of you who may have tuned in a little bit late and want to revisit this, we will have this posted to our YouTube page as well as our Facebook. So you can revisit the slide deck and gather that contact information as well. But with that being said, in the last minute or so, any closing thoughts to everyone who's watching today?
Well, first of all, once again, I applaud you all for being here on this call. And we talk with lots of investors, and there is a lot of fear out there. We know that. And we're certainly not telling you to run into anything for the sake of running into anything. But you need to kind of take a look at where the market is right now, and with the inflation where it is. And if your money is sitting on the sidelines, there's a difference between feeling safe of where it is and then also going backwards with your investable dollars. If inflation rate is at 7, 8, 9, 12%, wherever you think it is, depending on what the government is telling us. And if you're only earning 2 or 5% sitting somewhere right now, you're not necessarily going backwards, but your investable dollars are losing value. And so I would just implore you to put your money to work somewhere, whatever that looks like, or even a small amount of it. It doesn't have to be with myself. This is not a plug for our organization, although you saw the returns that we have, and that's why our investors invest with us over and over again. But I think at the end of the day, I think you should turn off the news for a little while and listen to some good advisors that can guide you into some investments to put your money back to work.
Great sentiment. And I think that's really common, especially with some IRA investors out there who may
Mhm.
be a little bit hesitant to get that money working for them because it's their nest
Mhm.
egg.
Sure.
So certainly encourage that due diligence factor. That's a
Of
huge
course.
portion of any
Mhm.
investment. But this is going to be really great content for those out there who are looking for something within the alternative investing industry and may just not know where that opportunity lies. So
Mhm.
very much appreciate you coming out today and everyone
Mhm.
for joining us. We are going to close on that note, but we will see you same time, same place next week. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Brianna.